Welcome to the Hyperpolyglot Activist. Learn languages, make a difference. My name is Dr. Carlos Silva Lopez, and today we're going to discuss a very topical question, which is the use of AI for the purposes of writing. As I explained in previous videos of this writing efficiency series, which you can check on the link above, AI is not going anywhere. It's here to stay, so you better learn it to give yourself an advantage in today's marketplace. Not mastering AI would be the equivalent of showing up to a gunfight with boxing gloves. Listen, I don't care how skillful you are as a boxer, your footwork, your IQ, your ring generalship, as soon as you step into range, you're gonna get shot, and that will be it. So it's in your best interest to learn how to use AI in a way that allows you to outsmart and outcompete everybody else. Refusing to use AI in today's day and age will be the equivalent of sticking to using fingers to count when it comes to solving complex mathematical equations and refusing to use a calculator instead. On the other hand, in my last video, I also introduced a caveat, which is the following. We shouldn't use AI as an end in itself. We should use it as a means to an end. What do I mean by this? Let's have a look at the following cheat sheet. Now, as you can see on the screen, there are some cases in which you should use AI and some cases in which you shouldn't. What are the cases where you should use AI? As you can read on the left side of the screen, the first use case is to help you get started on an assignment. This is the pre-part of the task. And so you can use AI for brainstorming purposes. If you are an instructor, then you can also use AI for suggestions for syllabi, lessons, and exercises. AI will be very useful in this regard. You can also use AI in the post stage, which is once you have already produced something, AI can help you improve on what you have already done. And it can help you improve in a number of ways. It can help with your register. For instance, you can ask AI to make your writing more formal or less formal, more academic or less academic, more or less clear, more or less compelling. You can also use it to adopt US or UK spelling across the board. In all these cases, AI will be very useful. And finally, you can also use AI to explain an idea in simpler terms or in a different way. This is extremely useful when it comes to making sense of some of the most abstruse forms of writing. So when we're reading a passage and we don't really understand what it means, or we think we could understand it better, just copy and paste that passage into an AI software, and you'll be able to obtain an explanation which will hopefully be clarifying. However, after using AI for all these three purposes, the pre, the post stages, and the explanation of a complex idea, you should always follow up with asking your instructor and checking your textbook if available to ensure that the produced explanation and improvement is actually an upgrade, is actually beneficial to your work. You should be able to track that work. Normally, if you open a conversation with an AI agent, that conversation is registered and saved once you have logged in. And then you should double check for hallucinations and bias, which is not infrequent at all. Lastly, you should cite the AI tool that you have used in your final product. So if you're writing an essay, you should mention the fact that you have used AI. Your instructor may require you to even provide a log of the entire conversation. That is rare, but it's not unheard of. At any point, the minimum is to cite the AI tool, to acknowledge the fact that you have used AI. Again, there is nothing wrong with it as long as you do so responsibly. So those are the cases where you can use AI. What are the cases where you shouldn't use AI? You shouldn't use AI, as I said before, as an end in itself, which means to fully complete an assignment for you. If AI is doing the work for you, you're missing the learning opportunity, of course, and you're also missing the development of critical thinking skills, which is a very important part of your education. Another case in which it's very dangerous to use AI is to help you quote and source. AI chatbots often hallucinate when doing this type of research, so I strongly encourage you to use alternative means if you want to engage in bibliographical reference and citation. An alternative which I often use is EasyBib from Bibliography. I will leave the link in the description so you can use that instead to generate citations. AI is particularly incapable, in my experience, of citing with accuracy the year, publishing house, or city where a particular monograph was published. It will miss some part of this information. Sometimes it will hallucinate the entire reference. It's very unreliable, so you should always double check, and it will not offer you a comprehensive perspective of the references you need to consult in a given field either. So it's not even good to start researching on a topic to have some basic bibliography on that given topic. So I strongly discourage you from using AI for bibliographical citations. Now, an additional idea that I would like to add here is that you can also use AI to process and translate non-editable text. What do I mean by this? You can use it to, for instance, have a look at this image. This image contains text in Hebrew, which is non-editable, meaning we cannot copy this text and we cannot paste text into this image. So how do we understand what it says if we don't know Hebrew in this case? Well, we can simply upload the image to an AI software and have that text translated into, say, English for us. In this sense, ChatGPT, for instance, is very useful. You can also use other software for that purpose. Another use case would be when you have a PDF with non-editable text, again, text that you cannot copycat or paste, and you want to have that information, which is already in a language that you actually understand. You want to have that information readily available so you can copy and paste it. You can simply ask the AI software, in that case, to write the text that is contained in the image, and that will turn the text from the image into an editable form of text, which is exactly what you wanted. So these are two ways in which AI can be used to deal with images. However, there are also a couple of cases where I will discourage you from using AI. The first one is the generation of images. In my experience, when it comes to generating complex images, for instance, infographics, timelines, etc., AI performs very poorly, and so it's not in your best interest to do that. And lastly, in theory, you could also use AI to generate PowerPoint or any other sort of slide presentation from scratch, but I would again strongly suggest you don't do that because AI is not high performing enough to deal with that task as it is right now. Of course, if you know any sources that are reliable, please feel free to add them in the comments down below. And now that we have established when to use AI and when not to use it, when you use AI, which platform should you use? And here I would like to recall Einstein's quote that an explanation should be complex, but no more complex than it should be. And so even though, as you can see on the screen, there are different platforms such as ChatGPT, Claude, DeepSeek, Perplexity, and Gemini, none of them represent a significant improvement on ChatGPT unless you're dealing with a very specific case. So for instance, you can use Claude if you're dealing specifically with long form writing, with a very long essay. You can use DeepSeek if you are dealing with text in or about Mandarin Chinese. You should use perhaps Perplexity instead of ChatGPT if you're concerned about citation reliability and fact checking, even though you should always do those after the fact anyway. And you could use Gemini if you are dealing with Google integration, for instance, from a Google Docs document or a YouTube video. In those cases, it could be faster to use Gemini as opposed to ChatGPT. But other than that, ChatGPT is arguably the best large language model for most analytical writing tasks, particularly if you're using GPT-4 Turbo, which is the pro version, but you don't need to pay to take advantage of most of the functions of ChatGPT. My suggestion in this regard would be for you to actually open all of these platforms, ChatGPT, Claude, DeepSeek, Perplexity, and Gemini, add them to a favorites folder, and have all of them available so that when you need a second or a third opinion on the same prompt, on the same request, you can always double check ChatGPT's answer against Claude's, Perplexity's, etc. That will be very useful. But unless you really need a second opinion, you are genuinely dissatisfied with ChatGPT's answer, or you're dealing with a very specific request of the sort I have just described, I don't really see any need to use additional AI platforms. So that's all from me. I hope that this overview on AI was useful to you. If you have any questions, feel free to book a paid consultation by clicking on the link below in the description. And as always, thanks for watching.